Set Persona 6 in college. I want to see more mature themes. If you've been around Atlus circles for any length of time, you'll know this is a commonly reflected sentiment among more casual fans. But what we now know is that after Persona 4, Atlus Studio Zero director and producer Katsura Hashino did just that. And the result, while imperfect, just like every game, is brilliant. And it was only refined and improved in the 2019 version of the game, Full Body, a true fine wine. At face value, Katherine is a spin on the well-tread love triangle concept. But there is so much under the surface that I plan to discuss here. Some themes are delivered to the player in a straightforward manner, but a number are obtuse. Many interpretations I've seen of this game, particularly the full body version, are considerate but incomplete. In this video, I plan to add to the existing discourse of Katherine and provide some new insights I think you haven't heard before. More than anything, I hope this video teaches you something. So, let's dive in. There is a warmth to the main setting of the game, which is also one of the principal characters, the Stray Sheep Bar. You'll spend a huge chunk of Katherine commiserating, chatting with friends and staff, and drowning Vincent, the main protagonist, in liquor, beer, wine, or sake, your choice. This location is lived in and has a lot of detail and care put into it. The group of guys you hang out with there, Johnny, Toby, and Orlando, are well voice acted. Just like Vincent's performance by Troy Baker, Katherine succeeds at having a down-to-earth cast. A believable group of friends. Or are they? We'll talk more about that. The boss. No, not Kojima's, is the purveyor of the Stray Sheep, and he's an interesting forerunner Sojiro from Persona 5, almost a hellish rendition of the old-timer from the coffee shop we all adore. This is where the team figured out how to evolve stylistically from the chibi designs of Persona 4. It's very evident to me now that Katherine is where so much of the groundwork was laid. It's where Atlus's massive success actually lies, despite its own modest commercial appeal. But the overarching story and choices the player can make are by far the most novel aspects of this game. So let's talk about the story. Vincent, an early 30s guy working in the software business, is riddled with indecision and underlying anxiety. His coping mechanism is to suck it up at his ass-kicking job, then race to the bar to make it all hurt a little bit less. He's living in a fantasy where he thinks happiness is if everything just remains as is. My belief is that the developers intended for Vincent to embody an everyman archetype, with flaws highlighted to function as a mirror for the player to look within themselves. His girlfriend Katherine, we'll call her K from here on, represents embracing responsibility. From his delusional perspective, she's increasingly shrill. She's a caring girlfriend, and ambitious. But she is becoming wary of Vincent's bad habits, disheveled apartment, and lack of growth. She asks him about further commitment. Her own mother is becoming worried too. This all comes to a head when Kay gives him the "I'm pregnant" horse pill. He struggles to swallow it down like his favorite cocktail. Fuck, I guess I gotta grow up. Doesn't exactly come easily to Vincent. But he's presented with another path. Katherine, yes, with a C. She's the manifestation of Vincent's rejection of adult responsibility, a personification of his lustful desires grafted onto a succubus. When they meet at the Stray Sheep Bar, she's telling him all the things he wants to hear. Enjoy life instead of getting locked down in a bad marriage with kids. Embrace hedonism. Just have fun. This is not a fantasy, it's really a path you can take. So Vincent, paralyzed by his indecision, can't help himself as a surreal option forces itself upon him. He submits. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the core tension of Katherine, a man who has sinned and must climb back through hell to repent and find freedom. It plays with psychological elements to manipulate the player in the process. Fan service is used to incentivize the player in the direction of chaos, or the notion of pregnancy and doing the right thing to snap you back to order. Atlus masterfully finds ways to manipulate the player and puts your nuts in a twist as to what to do. They use psychological techniques in interesting and novel ways to make players think twice too. For example, who the hell is Steve Delhomme exactly? Is Kay actually cheating on Vincent too? Another guy at the bar, Justin, shares an anecdote of a man who is raising another's kid with his wife, unknowing that it isn't his own. There's an attempt to get in Vincent's corrupted mind and sow seeds of doubt. As I was playing, I found this concept to be reminiscent of 2017's Doki Doki Literature Club, which takes the waifu slop simulator concept and flips it on its head. Similarly, this game takes the love triangle concept I mentioned earlier and does something unique, but what could have simply been a stylish visual novel is enhanced by another dimension, quite literally. Katherine, in its nightmare state for half of the game, is a puzzle adventure, a novel romance horror game. Each night, Vincent climbs a staircase from hell, solving ball-breaking puzzles and escaping from monsters as a sheep. He's not alone either. Other punishment from the bar or elsewhere are there with him in their sheep form. He gains pieces of knowledge about these characters and techniques to climb higher and higher to escape from this nightmare. And this hellish dimension is set to the score of well-known excerpts of classical music produced by Shoji Meguro and the Atlus sound team. These puzzles aren't simply move, block, jump, and platform. As someone with limited puzzle-solving acuity, these were quite challenging at times. They put Vincent through the fire, and you can feel the urgency to get the hell out of each stage. In a real way though, that puzzle-solving mirrors the experience the player has in the daytime. This is especially true in Full Body, when Katherine, or Rin, is thrown into the fold. The love triangle expands with a new challenger in this version of the game. Rin forces the player to confront the idea of what connection truly is. When faced with Rin's secret, do you embrace this character or turn your back? I think it's a powerful question that encourages self-reflection by the player. But that initial secret, I later learned, is also shared by our favorite server, Erica. She has nightmares too? Wait a second. When you consider the bones of Katherine date back to 2011, and this concept might have even been drafted during the late 2000s, it makes you wonder what exactly got into Atlus. Was it merely prescience? A prophetic knowledge that they were introducing questions about identity still several years from being anything but fringe? I understand this depiction was somewhat crude in the original release. To some, it was neither fleshed out nor politically correct by today's standard. But if you get past the presentation, it ties into many of the themes pervasive in their games, including Katherine, self-acceptance. With that context, it's not truly a trans allegory, that is potentially a Western interpretation. While Orlando, Johnny, and Vincent are wallowing in their insecurities, Erica, the one they poke fun at, has demonstrated true self-confidence. Knowledge of self is what each of these young men truly seek, and they cruelly project this pain onto her. Even in Full Body, where their dismissal is toned down, she struts around the stray sheep with confidence. Toby, much younger than the others at the bar, is drawn to this, as he isn't yet infected by the cynicism of his companions. The Full Body version of the game furthers these ideas. Considering we are several years removed, it's remarkable that they are still somewhat unique in the game's landscape, but ultimately, their refinement of Erica's role into a new love interest with Rin made me deeply consider how I would react if I were in Vincent's shoes. It's something I've never really posited. That rarely happens, and so you have to give them credit for opening the player's mind, or at least challenging them. That is where I broadly think the narrative of Katherine is successful, again, in pushing the player to reflect on genuine real-life dilemmas, rather than pick the best girl, goon, or bait. We'll talk more about these themes deeper into this video. However, Rin's presence in the game is also a double-edged sword. While it's a very interesting route, it corrupts the dichotomy of order versus chaos from the original release. It breaks the mold, which is cool, but it also complicated my initial experience. See, as I'd never played Katherine Classic, at first I was unaware that Rin wasn't fully integrated into the experience. Also, I wasn't totally sure about Kay or Rin. The game pushes questions onto the player like the following mandatory one. Would you be able to accept any secret your lover may have? Yes or no? When I read it, my reaction was, well, no, of course not. If the secret were, I had sex last week with other men behind your back, and we were in a monogamous relationship, it's over, obviously. That would be a betrayal. yet its tricky language and subverts direct choice. Rin disappears and we never see her again. She confesses her love to the player on the phone and then is gone. I don't remember telling Rin to piss off exactly. So the player is funneled into saying, "I love Kay, I want to be with her," just for being in the order side of things. At first, this was disappointing, because it felt like my player agency was overridden. Vincent, by my hand, was set down a path, being still in the order camp, of an indecisive, non-committal schmuck. Our joint reward was an ending where Kay dumps Vincent, becomes famous, and takes off in a helicopter. Later, I asked myself, had I played Katherine Classic, would I have had a more coherent initial experience? It seems like an obvious yes, at least in this case. It's one of the issues with layering a new narrative on top of an existing one, as it can come across as half-baked in some instances. Though I've also pondered since, did this new format actually enhance the player choice and consequence? Rin's presence muddies the waters further, and if you move toward her, even instead of C, you are thus indecisive about your girlfriend, even emotionally cheating, and she should rightfully leave Vincent. So did I get a logical finale? It stung at first, but it also led me to a different conclusion about how to view Kay within the context of Full Body, that I think aligns with the broader themes of Atlus games. Unlike Full Body, Katherine Classic contained fewer glimpses into the history of the romance between Vincent and Kay. After overcoming daunting puzzle sequences, the demonic deity Astaroth will show the player tender slices of their budding romance, a time when things seem to be so sweet and natural for the couple. Vincent is reminded here of how good his time with Kay can be. But things are very different now between them. The player gets the slice of their relationship in a 1-week window, and the framing tells us that things have cooled off, starting with the obvious signs, like, what kind of a 32-year-old guy who actually likes his girlfriend is spending every night in a bar? Remember also that Vincent starts having nightmares before Katherine ever mentions marriage or pregnancy. Bottom line, it's just not working anymore. And that's why C spontaneously emerges and effortlessly seduces him. It's why Rin is able to capture his attention as well. What I'm really getting at here is that in some way, fans' disdain for Vincent as a slacker, loser archetype is somewhat misplaced. This is the result of a framework of unidirectional blame. We see Vincent more. We know his flaws intimately. As I mentioned earlier, Atlus puts them on a silver platter. There's a reason we don't see him at work, busting his ass. He's only human, and viewing him as irredeemable is an incorrect conclusion. Ultimately, I contend that it was over between Vincent and his girlfriend before the events of the game unfold. That realization became more clear with repeat playthroughs. After seeing the other true ending routes, I reflected on the first ending I got, and it felt appropriate to me that Kay hit her zenith once she was untethered, and it actually felt right. Their relationship ran its course. This is also evident in how easily she ends things with her boyfriend of 5 years in other endings. Finally, I have some time for a new hobby. Or, I always felt tied down, she says before she boards the helicopter in her new life. She's light and casual now, and you can sense she is relieved of a mental perception of hauling dead weight. I believe my conclusion is also shared by those who sought the ending where Vincent is alone, finally with clarity to move forward and rebuild his life. What is one man's trash is another's treasure though, and that brings me to a tangential relationship dynamic to which I alluded to earlier, that I think is among the most profound commentaries in the game and heightened in Full Body. Vincent's drinking buddies, Orlando, Toby, and Johnny, are they really his friends? They are mirror images of the relationship archetypes many of us have had in our teens, 20s, and perhaps 30s. Some men for their entire lives, sadly. Anecdotally speaking, there is some element of crabs in a bucket personified in some friend groups. Conformity, guarded interactions, and simply put, never being quite vulnerable. Up until this incident, at least. They're fun until they are not anymore. In my own experience, people I really liked when I was 19 seemed incongruent when I was 22 or 23. Hanging out felt like wearing clothes that didn't fit anymore. It took me a few years to put my finger on what precisely occurred, but this game subtly articulates that. Orlando and Johnny in particular are grappling with their own issues, and when they hear what's going on with Vincent, they start to cast their own sentiments about it onto him. Their problems are projected onto his own circumstances, and it influences how Vincent thinks about himself and his relationship. To them, it probably seemed like camaraderie, helping him. In one ending, it's revealed that Johnny asks Kay out after things between her and Vincent end. So one wonders, without being too cynical, do they secretly want his relationship to fail, to keep him coming to the bar night after night? It's not totally clear, but they do encourage and accept his decisions. While this undercurrent was at work in the original scenario, it's enriched in the full-body version. Contrasting this murky dynamic, Rin is a bright shining light, pushing Vincent to be the best version of himself. While his friends are coasting like he is, the other love interests have their own agenda too. Kay seeks commitment. C is sowing the seeds of chaos. But there's somebody who isn't. In all of their interactions, Rin pushes Vincent to be more than he is, seeing the best in him that none of the others exactly can. This contrasts his girlfriend, who is, through good intentions, constantly trying to fit a square peg through a round hole. And this evolution in perspective that Rin uniquely brings once again links Katherine to the central theme of the Persona franchise, self-discovery, breaking the chains of societal expectation, or the pressure from your own friends or family to be a certain way. Rin's pureness of heart is also symbolized by the piano playing, which keeps him going and climbing to new heights, both literally and figuratively. Conversely, Vincent seeing the best in Rin inspires their piano playing to improve. For all of Vincent's flaws, he has the open mind to overlook what Rin perceives to be a fatal flaw, not being a biological human female. In their finale together, Rin is free of the expectations of the broader divine beings. Vincent has been able to overcome his cowardice because of Rin's support. Together, they jointly declare they feel unstoppable. What better outcome can love bring about than that? This is where I find Katherine is at its most sincere and powerful. Before I wrap this video up, there is another controversial thematic element I'd like to try my hand at addressing. Fans seem to be at a loss as to the supernatural or extraterrestrial elements of the game. Atlus is well known to interweave different biblical, Near East cosmologic, and other religious or supernatural elements into their titles. Admittedly though, these can be quite esoteric. For SMT fans, you feel right at home with Thomas Mutton, the antagonist and final boss of the game. We learn near the conclusion he was once a human who succumbed to darkness, and now goes by a moniker, Duzumid. That name, if you're not familiar, is a deity in different traditions in the ancient Near East, but is also mentioned by name in the Hebrew Bible. Astaroth, or Ishtar, is another direct reference to Near Eastern mythology, and so is Katherine with a C. If you play out her true ending, Vincent can become a diluted, demonic entity of great power. This backdrop helps us to ground the concept of the version of hell, a distinctly Judeo-Christian one. But where there is a defined hell, there is a countering force of heaven, right? So on that note, what is Rin precisely? Is Rin simply an alien from one of the UFOs we see in the sky? What about one of the pink blobs we see when her brother, the Archangel, is defeated? Why escalate things to the extent that, at face value, they seem ridiculous? I believe there are multiple lenses with which to analyze this. If we rely on the same biblical context clues for what identifies Thomas Mutton, we can frame Rin in a similar way. Early in the biblical book of Genesis, there are allusions to non-human entities, known as the Nephilim. From Hebrew, this can be translated as giant, like Rin's brother appearing as an immense archangel, an obvious visual countervailing force to the demons we know so well. But another word associated with this term is fallen, like the fallen angel that the player perceives Rin as. The verses in Genesis do not clearly articulate these beings or their form, so I believe it's possible that Atlus just took this concept and ran with it. In the plot, Rin was sent in an act of divine intervention to oppose the succubus, Katherine. This all fits into what I believe is a Christian or even Islamic framing of good against evil, waging war in the cosmos, and here, in typical Atlus fashion, it bleeds into the human world, which I always find fascinating. But there is also a surrealist and more obvious lens to view this all through. If we can believe the absurdist supernatural elements, Thomas Mutton's red and black eyes, Katherine as a demonic succubus, her father who is a cartoonish purple demon, and so on, why suspend disbelief at aliens? Push it to the limit. Take it to the edges of the galaxy. Vincent did want to go to space, right? So in a more pure sense, is it not also about abstracting the boundaries of true love? Can you accept Rin no matter the form, Otokonoko, Archangel, or pink alien sphere with one eyeball? You've already said yes once. Are you sure, Vincent? Are you really sure? I reflect on how much depth there is to what is, at its core, a 12 or 13 hour experience. How many layers there are to interpret, the quality of the craft, how good the music is, the authenticity of the interpersonal relationships, how strong the concept of the game is, and more. I just love this game. Particularly Shoji Meguro's soundtrack. Shout out to the Atlus sound team. And so despite some flaws, particularly with how Rin was weaved in, I think this game contains some of the best thematic work in video games. Period. It pushes the player to contend with multiple difficult questions, and challenges your beliefs. Like, what is love, and what does it look like exactly? Who are you as a person, and are you living life authentically? You can be more than you are is another good interpretation. The sky is limitless, aim higher. It also demonstrates the perils of inauthenticity and indecisiveness in life. It can look really ugly, like Vincent's apartment. You can be tormented, like the dreams he's having. I believe there's a good reason why Steve Delhomme is precisely 10 years older than Vincent. That's where you're headed on this current trajectory. What more can I say? Katherine Full Body is one of my favorite games of all time, a masterpiece. I hope this video challenges your views in some way, and I'm eager to hear your feedback. Please let me know in the comments what you think. I hope I'm wrong about something so I learn too. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.